Welcome to the Goose One channel. When this video drops, we should be about 4 days out from the 2025 Game Awards, and I'm excited. I allow myself to get pumped for one hyper-consumerist product hype event each year, and it's always the Game Awards because, well, I just love video games more than I really care about movies. So to cut right through the shit and get straight into the sauce, in this video, I'm going to be talking about my predictions. Which predictions exactly? Firstly, what games are going to be revealed at the event. These could include games that haven't exactly been announced yet at all, or games that have already been announced, but we haven't really gotten extensive trailers or good looks at them. Then I'm going to be talking about some of my predictions for some of the actual awards this year. Not all of them, as that would make for a really fucking long video, and there are also just a few awards I don't really care about. But of course, I will be talking about what game I think will go home with that prestigious Game of the Year title. So with that established, let's jump straight into the reveals. Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. There's gonna be some Kojima production reveal. Hideo Kojima is Jeff Keighley's best friend. He loves to get the man out on stage, so I don't even really need a justification here. More interestingly then, what is Kojima gonna show us this time? I don't think we're gonna get another OD thing. He originally revealed the game back in 2023 at the Game Awards, I think, alongside Jordan Peele, so a follow-up 2 years later would make some sense. The reason I don't think it's going to happen is that we just got the teaser trailer for the game 2 months ago. I just think it's a bit too early to drop another trailer right now. The earliest we're getting another look at OD is, in my opinion, Summer Games Fest next year. Koji Pro's other major game in the works, Physint, however, has a lot more of a chance of having something at this show. Revealed all the way back in 2024, Physint is supposed to be Kojima's return to the stealth action genre, the spiritual successor to Metal Gear that fans have been screaming for years. And aside from a poster and a logo, we don't really have anything to go off of. If there's any Kojima reveal, I would bet on it being this one. Speaking of Keighley's friends though, where's Remedy? Sam Lake Studio hasn't exactly been quiet with this year's release of FBC Firebreak, but that game seemed more like an in-betweener to me, something to tide the fans over between the award-winning Alan Wake and whatever big project they have coming next. So if Lake shows up, what's he gonna show us? I think it shakes out in two directions. Either we get some news on the Max Payne 1+2 remake. I'd love this, having recently replayed the whole franchise. I think these games deserve to be played by a new audience, a modern audience, specifically those that have been enthralled by Remedy's current library. And so the earlier we get more news about these remakes, the better. But more realistically, I think we're getting more news about Control 2. Remedy is super invested in their whole Control / Alan Wake / Quantum Break universe that I honestly think Max Payne was supposed to slot in before the untimely death of James McCaffrey. And they know that the fans are too. I think more than anything, they want to assure fans that the next entry is coming and coming soon. And with the news that production of the game went into full swing earlier this year, I think it's time for a teaser to get the fan base hype. Maybe not a full trailer. I don't think they're at the point of production where we have these finished character designs and all that stuff, but I think a teaser with something of an aesthetic that they can show off and maybe a direction of the plot would be really adequate for something like the Game Awards right now. So what else? Well, how about Dispatch? Dispatch is probably one of the biggest stories in gaming and one that will be super important to the through line of this year's Game Awards. Telltale, the kings of the 2010s, dead from bankruptcy only to return as an indie studio and drop one of the best-selling games of the year. It's a real Rocky story if I've ever heard one. Still, Dispatch just released. They're not ready to show a season 2 yet. What they could do, however, is a DLC, an extra episode or two based on one of the underutilized characters and maybe going further into your possible relationships with some more Dispatch segments. Can you tell I haven't played the game? Still, I think a DLC episode is so ripe for ad hoc's taking that I'd seriously be disappointed if they didn't show a trailer for one paired with a confirmation for a season 2, a green light or something. It just seems so obvious. There's bound to be an ad hoc thing, and I personally think this one is going to be it. And no, we're not getting Wolf Among Us season 2. I think Telltale still owns it. Doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Now, here's two that I don't think we're going to see this year: Elder Scrolls 6 and Half-Life X. Elder Scrolls 6 speaks for itself, I think. Bethesda hasn't said shit about the game since that OG reveal, and they're in a big Fallout era right now. If Bethesda shows anything, it's Fallout Season 2 trailer, not an Elder Scrolls 6 trailer. I really don't see it happening. But what about Half-Life X? Things have been looking up. I understand. I get it. We have hope. I have hope.
My colleague Gabe Follower recently made a public statement that nothing has changed in Valve's want to make an announcement in 2025 for HLX. And I am sitting here to say, as far as I can tell, nothing has changed. Hell, go all the way back to the beginning of the year with Jason Schreier not only calling that Grand Theft Auto 6 was not going to be hitting its deadline, but Silksong was.
But this shit is not happening, guys. We've been doing this for coming up on what, 2 decades? Almost 20 years, and it's never happened? See, I do believe that an HLX announcement is coming soon-ish. But not this year, not anymore. There's not enough time in 2025. I know the clip kind of suggests the opposite, but it just doesn't make much sense to me. Why now, a month after the hardware announcement? It feels too soon after it, like the dust hasn't properly settled. Not that Valve is like scared that their hardware announcement would overshadow Half-Life fucking free. More so the other way around, like the Half-Life 3 announcement is just too big. It's the most anticipated game of all time, bar none. There's nothing else. Don't say Silksong. It wasn't on the same level. It will never be. It really needs its own moment, I think, and I just don't think right now is that moment. Maybe Summer Games Fest, but it might not be big enough, honestly. So, is there anything left? Well, nothing particularly spectacular or interesting to me. We might get another look at Tides of Annihilation or another trailer for GTA 6 as an apology for the delay that doesn't really show anything new. I think the reveals I've discussed here are not only interesting, but also just the most likely to show up. So if that established, let's get into the awards. This is technically the main show, though I understand if the reveals are what you were caring about more. It's the reason I put it at the start. Still, I do care about the awards. I think they're an important celebration of the artistry behind the games we play and an important opportunity for the whole industry and community to come together for something positive for once. It's just great to see, in my opinion. Anyway, here are the awards I'm going to be talking about in this section. Best Indie Debut, Most Anticipated Game of the Year, and of course, the prestigious Game of the Year award. The nominees for Indie Game of the Year this year are Absalom, Ball X Pit, Blueprints, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Hades 2, and Hollow Knight Silksong. So there are 2, maybe 3 super obvious picks here. Let me talk about them. Silksong, one of the most anticipated games of the decade, finally released this year after a multi-year wait that saw Hollow Knight fans literally lose their minds. And well, from the reception, people seem to be quite happy with what they got. While I saw some complaints calling it an unexpected ramping in difficulty, most gamers seem to agree that it was an incredible expansion upon the base Hollow Knight game, which I didn't play, so excuse me if I sound uninformed. Blueprints was a game I heard about a lot earlier this year, a hit puzzle game that people seem to be enamored with. Since then, though, I've heard a lot less about it, and it's probably not gonna win, but I kind of wouldn't be surprised if it pulled a dark horse out of the bag due to Silksong and Clair Obscur voters focusing on the actual Game of the Year votes. Speaking of Clair Obscur, this is a hard one. See, if the Game Awards was an award show like the Grammys, I'd break it down like this. The Game of the Year goes to one, the Indie Game of the Year goes to the other. But these awards are fan voted, and people who vote for Silksong as Indie Game of the Year will also vote for it as Game of the Year. They're not gonna make a truce and say, oh, you guys get this one because it's more of an indie game, and you guys get this one so we can both have an award. That's not how they're gonna do it. So honestly, I think Clair Obscur wins this. It's got so much star power. It is such an accomplishment of an indie game, and I've seen everyone hyping it up so hard. I think it's got the fans on its side, and while Silksong has a chance, I kind of just don't see it happening. Best Indie Debut is a different story. Out of all of these 4, this one pretty clearly goes to Dispatch. If it'd been nominated for Game of the Year, it would win that one too, honestly. It's by far the biggest hit of the year next to something like Marvel Rivals or Call of Duty for speaking sheer sales numbers, and it handily takes this title for itself. Even if it's not really an indie debut, that's just besides the point. Most anticipated Game of the Year is once again pretty decided. It's GTA 6, guys. It's always GTA 6, especially in the wake of the whole GTA 6 delay. This game is at the peak of its hype level. People want this game released yesterday. They want it last year. If this goes to any other game, I'll sell my left testicle to Dark Viper AU. I won't. That's a joke. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. Please don't make me do that. The fact that Half-Life 3 isn't on this list says something. I think it'd almost be proof that they're going to reveal the game this year because it's not anticipated anymore. It's real. It's here, guys. No, but I don't know. Might be a bit too conspiratorial for me. Tyler McVicker could put it in his next HLX files. And finally, we've got the main course, the game of the goddamn year. Let's list all the nominees in order first. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. While these are all popular, successful games, I think there are once again about 3 of them that actually have a big chance at winning the award. And those games are called Hollow Knight Silksong, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and Death Stranding 2. Hades 2 is a great sequel to the original from what I've heard, and I love that first game. Donkey Kong Bonanza is another great innovative Nintendo platformer, blah, 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 blah. And Kingdom Hearts Come Deliverance 2, that's the wrong name. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 also seems like a cool game. My friend really likes the first one, but they're just not winning this. They don't have the shared determined audience, the rabid fans who will go to war for these games. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is 2025's Persona 5, the narrative-led RPG that people adore with an intuitive battle system that has some depth but isn't too overwhelming for newcomers to the genre, and has a cast of characters that players quickly became obsessed with. And it's probably the game I've heard most people talk about, but, well, Persona 5 did lose to Breath of the Wild in 2017. Death Stranding 2 is the sequel to 2019 Game of the Year nominee Death Stranding 1, and in my opinion, it should have won over Sekiro. It's a great game, but it's not Death Stranding. But that's beside the point. See, while the original Death Stranding was a huge success, the then long-awaited return from the legendary Hideo Kojima, who hadn't released anything since Metal Gear Solid 5, it rightly got a lot of criticism, though I don't agree with all of it. People said the story's pacing was both too slow and too fast, that the gameplay was boring, and that the game as a whole lacked action. And from what I've heard, though I don't own a PS5, so I don't know for sure, please give me a PS5, guys. If you like this video, consider giving me a PS5. From what I've heard, though, Death Stranding 2 fixed all these issues. It has more action while keeping the calmingly tense energy of the first game. The story is paced better and made more clear, while still keeping that off-the-wall esoteric energy that the first one was so well known for and so well liked for. It's so fucking good. The best of both worlds, from what I've heard. And then we have Hollow Knight Silksong, the darling of the community, the sequel to what everyone seems to think is the greatest indie game of all time. And from what I can tell from my own extensive market research, everyone seems to think it's even better than the original game. What do I even say about Silksong that won't be said by everyone in my comments section the moment this video drops? People love this game. So, who wins? I mean, it's got to be Clair Obscur, right? I said it before, but if Dispatch had been nominated, I might have said that would be the winner because it feels like no other release from this year has been as celebrated as Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It's kind of the SD kit of gaming, a game from a relatively obscure studio that blew up by doing something that no one else was doing, dynamic turn-based combat, to this scale. And now everyone is talking about it so much that it's annoying. And it's an incredible accomplishment of a game. It looks so good. I've heard it plays incredibly. If this game doesn't win the award, color me surprised. And that's all I'll say. If you think any of the other games has a chance, maybe like Hades 2 or Donkey Kong Bonanza, I could see Donkey Kong Bonanza winning in the same vein of how Astro Bot won last year, but I think it's a very different situation. But if you have any other theories of games that might win, please tell me in the comments. Hell, if you think there's going to be some game reveals I didn't talk about in the first section, tell me about that too. I'd love to hear some of your theories. But with all that said, I think it's time for me to head out. If you liked the video, consider subscribing or checking out the Patreon, and I'll see you guys at the Game Awards maybe later this week. I might post some reaction clips if I remember to do that. Goodbye. I ain't been outside cause the sun don't show. I'm in hella bright, but my hands still go. What